To the cloud. The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Mark. Glory to you, Lord Christ. After Jesus and his disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still dark, he got up and went to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let's go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. Good morning. We are at the last of the sermons of things I'd like to remind you that we've worked on while I've been with you. And this actually starts with a bigger story. I have been part of the church for all of my life. I have observed lots of different groups, churches, family groups, friend groups, organizations, and often in these places, I've observed an interaction that went like this. There's a gathering, there are people together, and a person says or does something that I thought might have been inappropriate. It's a racist joke, it's a sexually inappropriate comment, it's abusive language, or abusive actions. And I observed this happening in a wide variety of groups. And I also noticed no one said anything. Even when people were clearly uncomfortable, no one said anything. So I watched that for a while, and then I got brave enough. So why didn't you say anything? Well, that's just how that person is. That's just how they are. And for a long time, that was unsettling. Why were we excusing a person's inappropriate behavior? And I get it, right? Like everything in systems, I get it. Maybe each person is thinking that it's only themselves that thinks that that's inappropriate or rude or uncomfortable for them. Maybe they think that others aren't bothered by it. Maybe we don't know what to say, like we're caught off guard. We're not ready for that. But I've observed this pattern over and over and over again. And eventually I ended up with some authorities in some systems, and I was able to intervene. So I was working hard on my own personal boundaries, and I had a responsibility also to lead communities that offered safety for people. Through my own learning, I attended anti-racism trainings and preventing sexual misconduct trainings. I ended up teaching preventing sexual misconduct, safeguarding God's people and safeguarding God's children. So with those trainings, with my own personal work, when somebody said something or did something, I was able to respond with, "That was inappropriate," or "I'm not comfortable with that type of joke." And I've often found that others appreciate that I've responded. As part of my learning and then teaching, I've also taught other people that they have authority and power to respond. Each person can set one's own personal boundaries and that they keep themselves safe. Leadership teams, like vestries, can discuss what norms they want to set in their communities and work on that. So I observed that, but there was also something else that I was observing, especially in church communities. And I realized that it was a bigger thing, but it was more than just in behavior. It was sort of that piece where leadership could look at something that could be better or changed or different or a growth piece. So this is called growth mindset. Growth mindset. Hold on to that. We're going to go back. So that response, well, that's just how they are, right? That excuse indicated that people didn't think that the person could or would change. These actions and words can be detrimental to a community. If you have a person in a community who says something or does something that is hurtful and doesn't make it a safe place, you may have people within the system that excuse it, say it's okay. But when you have new people come in, new family members, new members of your organization that come in, they don't know, well, that's just how they are. They don't see the system as safe. They'll walk in and then they walk back out. The thing that's most striking to me is that this thought that, well, that's just how they are, is a pass. It's okay. I wasn't willing to accept that, because I believe that people can grow and change. They can learn to build stronger communities that are kind and loving. They can learn about Jesus's teachings, about caring for others, and learn new things that can help others, their wider community, build that world that God dreams about. So, as I could in all the systems that I'm in, I invite people into growth. In the church, it's even just that small thing of, we've never done it that way before. I know you've never heard that before. None of you have ever said that before, right? Well, Heather, we've never done it that way before. An indication that we can't possibly learn a new way. But I really think that we can. I really think that we can. And so this is where we come back to growth mindset. In summer of 2019, I was listening to a book that introduced me to that term and the concept of growth mindset. It broke my world open. If I ask you, can a person's IQ grow over their lifetime? What would you say? I said no. I said no, because I had been trained, well, no, your IQ doesn't grow. Even though before that moment, I would have said you can change and grow, right? I didn't think about it being IQ. The answer is yes, your IQ can grow over time, because obviously that was one of the things that this research psychologist was tracking and using to see how people succeed and why, right? So they could use that's IQ is an easy measurable thing. But this research psychologist was like, why are people succeeding, especially young people? And her conclusion was grit. Grit. What do people with grit do in the face of failure? They learn from it, they make adjustments, and they try again. They believe that they can learn and grow. They try things again in a new way. They make mistakes. They get curious and ask questions. What happened? What can I learn from that? Then they try again, learning from the mistakes. And these scientists were talking not only about classroom learning, but succeeding in jobs and relationships. And I realized, that's it. I believe in growth mindset, and that people always have the choice to learn and grow. There's no need to excuse poor behavior as, well, that's just how they are, if it's harmful to the community. There's no reason to sit back on, well, that's the way we've always done it, if it's not life-giving anymore. Growth mindset opens up a whole host of possibilities. As we learn and change and grow as individuals, as we learn and change and grow as communities, we can find new ways of doing things that are life-giving. When I say the church is surrounded by, we've always done it that way, that is not just this church. Remember, I see lots of churches. Well, we've always done it this way. But it might be that someone remembers when we did it that way, and it was life-giving. That way was created because it was useful or helpful at some point. But if we haven't stopped to examine, is that still helpful to us? Is that still life-giving to us? We miss the opportunity to find a way that might be better, might work better in our current context and our current situations so that it can be life-giving, so that we can learn new ways of creating God's dream in the world. Jesus's whole life and ministry was based on the belief that people are able to learn and grow. Think about all of the conversations that Jesus has with people. He met with tax collectors who paid people back and stopped stealing from others. He met with leaders who stopped abusing their followers. He encouraged the rich to give to the poor. He encouraged communities to share their wealth among one another. This is our biblical history. This is one where Jesus says, you don't have to live the way that you've been living. Come, live in love. God has the way. And all of this leads us to the themes that you know and love, that you can probably preach for me right now, right? God has a dream for the world, the kingdom, the parousia, right? Our work is to help bring that into being here and now in our context, in our communities, in our daily lives, in our work together, in our small groups, in our larger communities. We have choices about how we create our systems, about how we act with one another. We have choices to create those systems so that we can do the best work, so that we can work together with Jesus as our model. We can work with those disciples to build communities based on Jesus's teaching. This is what a Christian community does. This is how a Christian community acts. And this is how a Christian community talks to each other and proclaims that good news to the world. I pray. Thought I was going to make it through this week. I pray that I have modeled well for you the willingness to be curious and experiment. I've learned so much about myself and being part of Christian community while working with you. My prayer for you as we part ways is that you continue to be curious about what God is doing in the world. I pray that you face the upcoming questions with a growth mindset. What can we try? What are we called to do in this space and time? What have we tried in the past? And how might we grow on what we learned from that? Through the experiments that you continue to do, you can learn more about yourself and what God is calling you to be. And I pray that by being open to new things, you can grow in fellowship in this community, continuing to deepen the ties that you have built. And I pray that through your passion for ministry, you can be the hope and the light that the world so desperately needs. Those are my prayers and my hopes. May God be with you and continue to strengthen you and continue to call you to those new and exciting things.